morning, Mr. Matthews, Ms. Burns.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Anything we need to talk about before I call a case?
I don't
No,
have
Your
any.
Honor.
All right, then let's be on the record in case number 2021CR170, captioned State of Kansas versus Don Burns. Would the parties announce their appearances, please?
May it please the court, Christopher Schneider, Assistant District Attorney, appears on behalf of the state of Kansas via the Zoom platform.
May it please the court, David Matthews appears with Don Burns, who appears in person on Zoom.
All right, we are here set down for a sentencing. The record should reflect that the parties were in court again by Zoom back on June 11th, at which time the defendant changed her pleas as to count 1 and count 2 from not guilty to guilty. The state dismissed the other charges. The court inquired and accepted that and ordered a PSI and set it for sentencing today. I've received this PSI. And the critical findings are as follows. The primary offense of conviction is one of violation of the Offender Registration Act. That is a severity level 6 non-person felony. The defendant's criminal history score was found to be that of F as in Frank. That would leave her for this charge with a presumption of prison with a presumed range of 25, 27, or 29 months. If she has to do that time, she'll be eligible for up to 15% good time credit and subject to 24 months of post-release supervision. Obviously, special rule number 46 applies. That's the offender violation of the Offender Registration Act. If Ms. Burns is granted probation today, it would be for a period of 24 months to community corrections. As to count 2, that is also a violation of the Offender Registration Act, a severity level 6 non-person felony. For scoring purposes, on the second count, Ms. Burns' criminal history is considered to be I as in Isaac. That would leave her with a presumption of prison from count 1 and a presumed range of 17, 18, or 19 months. The same 15% special rule post-release supervision and probation terms apply. I'll ask you first, Mr. Schneider, did you have an opportunity to review the PSI? Any additions, corrections, or challenges?
Your Honor, I have had the opportunity to review it. It appears to be accurate.
Mr. Matthews, same question.
Your Honor, I've reviewed it myself and with my client, and I have no additions, corrections, or challenges.
All right. This morning, I woke up with the intent to review Mr. Matthews' motion for a dispositional departure. However, we are currently locked out of our remote access due to an apparent power failure. So, Mr. Matthews, I haven't had an opportunity to review it yet, but I'll be happy to hear your comments on it.
Okay, Judge, and I could send it to you too. I think I had it on my phone earlier.
That would be great.
So I'll try to do that, but I'll go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Judge, as far as my motion goes, I'll sum it up for you. My client had waived preliminary hearing. That's one of the factors the court can look at for a substantial and compelling reason to depart. So she waived her prelim. She pled on this case. Judge, from the time I met her, she indicated to me that she wanted to plead. So very early on in this case, she decided that she didn't want to use the state's resources or have them come in. So she did save them from having to bring in witnesses for a trial or a prelim and took care of this case pretty quickly. I would note that she's living with her mother. She's disabled. Judge, one of the reasons that I had put in my motion was that some of these convictions are older. She is an F, but I believe one of the convictions that makes her an F is in 2002. The other is in 2007. So she had at least gone a substantial part of her life without having those or since those times. I would note that a lot of the reasons, Judge, for registration for her were financial, with her being disabled. I would note to the court that the day after she was released from the Wyandotte County Jail on this case after plea, she went and registered. So she has taken care of that. So I'm pretty impressed with the ability that she's had to take care of some of these things, even between plea and sentencing. And I would ask the court to depart and grant her probation. And I would also note one of the reasons in my motion is that it's part of the plea between the prosecutor and the defense attorney.
All right, Mr. Schneider, I hear your comments as to the motion to depart and anything else touching upon sentencing.
Your Honor, I would ask the court to follow the plea agreement in this case. Pursuant to that agreement, the parties agreed to ask the court to run the sentences in this case consecutive to each other. I would ask that the mid-range sentences run consecutive. We also agreed to recommend a dispositional departure to probation. Mr. Matthews has set out the reasons in his motion, and those are the reasons why the state agreed to a departure in this case, because it seems to be the just and appropriate thing to do in this case. I would, as an extraneous manner, suggest that perhaps the court may want to take up, when sentencing is complete, whether or not the defendant is indigent for purposes of the registration fee under the Offender Registration Act.
Right. Yeah. All right. Mr. Matthews, anything else? I've heard your motion this morning. Anything else as to sentencing today?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Burns, now is your opportunity to tell me anything you want me to know in mitigation of your sentence today.
I just wanted to be granted probation. I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. I have reported to Danielle McClinton, my assistant supervisor, every week. I have registered and I'm applying and doing by the rules.
Great. All right. Mr. Matthews, you know any legal reason why I should not now proceed to sentencing?
No, Your Honor. I'd also note that I have sent the motion to you, the motion to depart. I've emailed to you.
All right. Let me see if that has arrived yet. It has not, but I will certainly peruse it. There it is. All right. Give me 1 second here. Open it up, take a look. Yes, I have seen it, and it tracks very closely with defense counsel's motion or comments today. All right. Well, I will tell you what, I am going to follow this plea agreement. I'm going to grant the motion for downward dispositional departure. I will adopt as the substantial and compelling reasons for that downward dispositional departure those set out in the defendant's written motion and defense counsel's comments here today. I do believe that they constitute substantial and compelling reasons to depart from the sentencing guidelines. Therefore, Ms. Burns will be sentenced on count 1, which is the violation of the Kansas Offender Registration Act, a severity level 6 non-person felony with a criminal history score of F, to the standard range of 27 months. She has to do that time. She'll be eligible for 15% good time credit and subject to 24 months of post-release supervision. Her application today for probation is considered, and it is granted to community corrections for a period of 24 months. As to count 2, the same offense with a criminal history I, Ms. Burns will be sentenced to the standard range of 18 months. The same 15% good time credit, 24 months of post-release supervision, and 24 months of probation apply. That obviously the probation does not run consecutive to one another, but the underlying sentences are hereby ordered to run consecutive. The court will note specifically that it is aware that there is nothing about this case that makes consecutive sentences mandatory, that it is a discretional decision of the court to run that based on the parties' plea agreements. And again, as I said, the defendant will be granted probation from these sentences for a period of 24 months to community corrections. So let's address very quickly costs and fees. My understanding, if I remember the affidavit in this case correctly, is Miss Burns has some chronic health conditions. Is that correct, Mr. Matthews?
It is, Your Honor, and she's on disability for those.
All right. Miss Burns, how much disability do you get a month?
I get $7.94 a month.
All right. Do you have anybody that do you have any children or other people that depend on you for your income?
No,
All right.
all my children are grown.
Okay. All right. Do you rent a place or do you own a home?
I'm renting from my mom. I live with my mom and I give her rent and I pay the light bill.
Okay. I imagine part of the food bill and things like that as well. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I would imagine that that probably leaves you with little or no disposable income after all those bills are met. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to waive costs, court costs. I'm going to waive supervision fee. Mr. Matthews, I'm also going to waive reimbursement of your fee from your client. The KBI database fee does not apply as she's already in that database. There will be no fine. There's no request for restitution. So that's going to leave her without any costs or fees. All right, Ms. Burns, a couple of things that I need to advise you of. As a convicted felon, it's prohibited for you to own or possess a firearm. Certain kind of deadly cutting instruments like dirks, daggers, switchblades, basically knives that could be considered deadly weapons. You have 14 days from today's date to appeal anything you don't like about your sentence, and you may be able to seek expungement after a period of time following successful completion of probation. Do you understand all those things?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
All right. Now, Mr. Matthews, Mr. Schneider brought up a good point here. It seems to me that your client would certainly qualify as indigent to have her registration fees waived. Do you agree with that?
I do, Your Honor.
All right. I am going to make the finding that the defendant is indigent and that while her duty to register remains, that she is not required to pay the associated fee that goes along with that registration. All right, Ms. Burns, this case is not a registration case, but your duty to register under your old case still remains. So what I've done today is made it such that you don't have to pay each time. I think it's a $25 fee each time you
20,
go
Your
to
Honor.
Pardon?
20, Your Honor.
20. It's a $20 fee. Normally, every time you go in to register, you won't have to pay that anymore, given your status of indigency, but you do need to continue to register until that expires. Mr. Schneider, are we aware how long a period was it that Ms. Burns is required to register?
Judge, she's required to register for 15 years. It was a 2007 case, but any time that she didn't register extends that period of time. I would suspect she's going to go into probably 2023 or 2024.
That sounds about right.
All
right.
Looks like
So-
she stopped registering back sometime in 2018. So there's probably, that's probably going to get stretched out 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, all right. So, Ms. Burns, you're getting there. All right. Normally, if you had been registering the whole time, you would expire sometime next year. But as Mr. Schneider noted, that time that you weren't registering kind of gets added back on. Look, this is my position, and I think this is kind of everybody's position here. We're not really thrilled with the amount of time that people face and all the almost automatic prison time that they face when they violate this statute. So that's why we offer these things that give you departures and probations. But at some point, people's patience runs out and our ability to kind of ignore, I shouldn't say ignore, to work around the sentencing guidelines comes to an end, and people end up serving a lot of time for not registering. Okay, you're getting close. It's not as close as it should be, but you've got a few more years. You need to make sure it's not going to cost you any money now. So you need to make sure you keep up with that so that we don't end up back here. You're on probation now. So if you were to stop registering again, they could not only add those new charges and give you all that time, but they could ask you to have to go do this time as well. You understand that?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
All right, good deal. So I wish you well. I think you're going to do well. I'm glad that I was able to kind of take the financial considerations out of it so that
Yes,
you
thank
can be successful. When we go off, let me do this. Anything else for our record today?
Judge, the only thing I would add to what you just said is the waiver you just granted is good for 3 years. So if her, if she has to register for more than 3 years from today's date, she will have to come back and ask that the waiver be regranted, if you will.
Right. All right. You understand that, Ms. Burns?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
3 years from today. Now you'll be really close. I don't know if you'll be done registering or not, but it'll be very close. But if you're still registering and you still need that waiver, you need to talk to a good lawyer like Mr. Matthews or somebody to ask me to extend that waiver to the end of your registration. Okay.
Okay, yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Matthews, anything else for our record today?
No, Your Honor.
All right. We're adjourned.